Green Entrepreneurial University, Karatina University. And definitely we are here and we're saying inspiring innovation and leadership. And the big question is, what does it mean to reflect on the past and contemplate on the future? What does it mean to reflect on our past and contemplate on our future? Welcome, wherever you're joining us from, East Africa and around the world. We are here at the Green Entrepreneurial University, inspiring innovation and leadership, talking about very pertinent issues. Remarkably stated, we the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of all creation, honoring those who heroically struggled to bring freedom and justice to our land, proud of our ethnic, cultural, and religious diversity, and determined to live in peace and unity as one indivisible, sovereign nation. We want you to be part of that conversation here at Karatina University. And to really open it up for us, we have an amazing panel discussion, so keep it locked here, because you will also have an opportunity to send in your questions and comments. But to start us off, please welcome.
She is an ecologist involved in several environmental projects. She recently coordinated a project on environmental establishment of environmental clubs in primary schools in many countries.
Good morning. My name is Professor Moshai Mushiri, the Vice Chancellor of Karatina University. This week, Karatina University is hosting the National Cohesion and Integration Week, whose theme is the National Dialogue on Cohesion on Integration, reflecting on our past and contemplating on the future. In this week, we are happy to host various cultural groups who are going to show their cultural activities, dances, cooking skills. We will be having a good time enjoying the various cultures that are represented in this country. In this week, we are also going to have discussions. We are going to have discussants that are very well known in this country, from the political analysts. We are going to have religious personalities who are going to be interviewed, and they're going to be talking about issues of cohesion and integration. In Karatina University, we are so happy to host this national dialogue because especially at this time when we have very high political temperatures, we are providing a platform where we can have a conversation and make our contribution to national cohesion and integration. Some of the objectives of this National Cohesion Week is to bring together communities to express and share their rich cultural heritage. Secondly, provide a forum for various stakeholders to discuss the various issues on cohesion and integration in Kenya. Thirdly, to audit the status of cohesion and integration in Kenya. Finally, to come up with recommendations and strategies on how to promote integration and cohesion in Kenya. And I thank you very much.
She is an ecologist involved in several environmental projects. She recently coordinated a project on environmental conservation through establishment of environmental clubs in primary schools in many countries, and served as the Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors of the National Environmental Management Authority. Please welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of academics, research and student affairs at Karatina University, Professor Benina Aro-Omudo.
Thank you very much, John Mwakazi, for that elaborate introduction. Chief guests, speakers, colleagues, students, all protocols observed. Good morning, everybody. Good morning once again. I would like to start off as the chairman of the organizing committee, so chief guest, I'll give a few remarks on my behalf and on behalf of the organizing committee, and then I'll go on to the next level. I want to welcome us to the third Cohesion and Integration Week being held at Karatina University. It started yesterday, and we are winding up tomorrow, and today is the climax. At this juncture, allow me, chief guest, to introduce the members of the organizing committee that have made this event possible. Members, if you can stand up, please, wherever you are. That is Dr. Beatrice Ombaka. I'll start with Professor Wanjao in front here, Dr. Beatrice Ombaka, Peter Ngugi, Dr. Gichuhi David, Dr. Mwenzwa, Dr. Grace Kamodho, Dr. Kellen Kiambati, Professor Lokuruka Michael, Dr. Maurice Kimosop, Dr. Mr. Peter Karanja, Dr. Josephat Kagema, Dr. Mengo Manyabizi, Sister Dr. Jacqueline Alari, and we have Dr. Joan Wakaza. That is the team that has made this event. Can we clap for them? Thank you very much. I'll also recognize the student leadership wherever you are. Please stand up. Thank you very much. That is the Student Governing Council. They are part of this, and they have really assisted us, led by the chairman, Mr. Ndiema. Thank you very much. You can sit down. Allow me at this juncture to recognize the presence of our council leader, council member, Mr. Felix Okach is in the crowd. Mr. Okach, if you can stand up. That is Mr. Felix Okach. He's here as a council member just to ensure that we are doing the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Felix Okach. This event, chief guest, comes at a time when we are about to go to the elections in 4 months' time. We wish to change the narrative that has been there in this nation, where people fear elections. People are ready to pack their bags whenever they hear elections are coming so that they can leave because they are fearing for their safety. That's why we have organized this Cohesion and Integration Week, so that we can discuss how best we can make Kenya a cohesive and an integrative society. I shared yesterday about a skit I watched by Kenyatta University Traveling Theatre on how they describe the communities in Kenya. And this is what they said. They said, when you look at the Kikuyus are good in making money. They see opportunities of making money where other communities don't see it. And that is a fact that we cannot run away from. They also looked at the Kalenjins and they said, Kalenjins are marathoners. And none of us can run like the Kalenjins. Even if we try, we cannot. And then they looked at the Kambas, and they said, Kambas with their carvings, the beautiful carvings can only come from Kambaland. No other community can do it that better. And they also mentioned something about the coastal communities. Those people can make chapatis, laini na nyororo, and they can also cook wali. None of us can do it, and that is their strength. And the message they were passing during that event is that if you put our strengths, our cultural heritage, the 45 communities of Kenya, put us together, we have a strength and we can develop this nation if we are united. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been here for 11 years. This is my 11th year. I've worked in Nyeri. I was sharing with Archbishop Muheria that I know Nyeri more than I know my home county, Homa Bay. I rarely know Homa Bay, but I know Nyeri much better than Homa Bay. And when I go to the market, I don't feel like I don't come from this community. I feel like one of them. I've worked with them so much that now they've even given me a local name. My name for this area is Nyawera. So if you look for me as Professor Penina Lobudo, you may take a bit of time, but the moment you say, we are looking for Professor Nyawera, you'll be told her office is here. Because I'm Nyawera wa Madira, na Madira ne Magidhomo. Ladies and gentlemen, the message I have for us as I go to read the VC speech before I start is we are one. We are one people. Let us safeguard our peace. Let us protect this nation. Let us not be used, especially the youths, by politicians. Let us maintain peace in this nation, because if Kenya is on fire, and we'll hear more from the panelists, if it burns with you and I. Let us avoid that scenario, particularly during elections. Chief guest, allow me now to read the speech that was written by the Vice Chancellor at this juncture. Chief guest, Dr. Reverend Samuel Kobia, Chairperson, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, distinguished Kenyans, ladies and gentlemen. On this auspicious occasion, when we have once more come together to showcase and celebrate our diversity, it gives me great pleasure and pride as the head of Karatina University to stand before you and talk about the needs for peaceful coexistence in this country. Indeed, when I look around, I marvel at the ethnic diversity represented by several cultural groups and the participants that are present here today. In this regard, I would like to celebrate the unreserved resolve, the resilience, and zeal of Kenyans and their love for peace and tranquility, the absence of which life would be difficult. We all remember the inter-ethnic violence that has characterized this country since independence, climaxing in the 2007-2008 post-election violence. The subsequent peace-building efforts culminated in the first ever coalition government in this country. Moreover, the after effects of 2007-2008 post-election violence has lessons that every Kenyan must always reflect on, which resulted in the peace we are enjoying today. Subsequent to the 2007-2008 post-election violence, there were numerous peace-building efforts. Particularly, the establishment of two commissions in 2008, namely Truth, Justice, and Reconciliation Commission and the Commission of Inquiry into Post-Election Violence. From the two commissions, there were recommendations and subsequent action in different areas, including ethnic tensions and reconciliation. In particular, the two commissions recommended, among other issues, the establishment of a National Reconciliation Conference Day, as well as continuous and sustained national and community dialogue to avert future violence. Karatina University did take the challenge in line with its national calling and established the annual National Cohesion and Integration Week. Chief guest, ladies and gentlemen, the first National Cohesion and Integration Week and International Conference was held in 2017 with the theme Promoting National Cohesion and Integration Through Cultural Diversity, Our Culture, Our Heritage. This pioneering event has remained a reference point and has revitalized our resolve as an academic institution to remain focused on promoting cohesion and integration, hence peaceful coexistence in this country. The event has proved to us as an academic community that change starts within each one of us, irrespective of our resource endowment, size, or ethnic background. While we have had marked participation from Kenyans, the participation of regional and international experts last year have not only upped the visibility of the university globally, but has also taught us that indeed the future is bright if we remain united. Ladies and gentlemen, the second event was held last year, but due to COVID-19, we did not maximize the activity, and therefore we decided that this event will take place this year, given that this year is an election year. Chief guests, ladies and gentlemen, this year, the third National Cohesion and Integration Week, under the theme National Dialogue and Cohesion and Integration, reflecting on our past and contemplating on the future, started yesterday and will end on Thursday, 31st March 2022. The goal of holding the National Cohesion and Integration Week is to promote cultural diversity as a unifying factor by providing a forum for displaying the diverse cultures in Kenya and to discuss and conceptualize multiculturalism. This is in furtherance of the principles of justice and human rights as enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of Kenya 22 on the Bill of Rights and attendant laws and policies thereafter. In line with the goal and the theme, the objectives of 2022 National Cohesion and Integration Week are to provide an opportunity for communities to showcase their diverse and rich cultural heritage, to audit the state of cohesion and integration efforts in our country, to determine the lessons learned out of the previous national cohesion and integration efforts, offer an opportunity to communities to interact and share ideas that promote cohesion and integration, and identify and recommend sustainable strategies to strengthen the national institutions charged with cohesion, integration, and peace-building efforts. Chief guest, ladies and gentlemen, with the forthcoming general election in August this year, 2022, it is our hope as a university that this event will bring out the importance of peaceful coexistence towards achieving national unity. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the observations and recommendations from the panel discussions in this forum will be a turning point in our national cohesion and integration. I wish to reiterate our commitment as a university to regularly hold these events towards promoting national unity in our beloved country, Kenya. I would like to thank our sponsors, Ford Foundation, NCIC, Vision 2030, the Standard Group, Equity Bank, Traction Schools, and our partners, including press, panelists, facilitators, members of staff, students, and indeed all stakeholders that have made this event successful. I also acknowledge the organizing committee for this splendid event. And from the success of this activity, Karatina University, in collaboration with partners, is able to organize a more robust national dialogue if called upon to do so, and with facilitation. With these few remarks, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you all to Karatina University, the Green Entrepreneurial University, and to this panel discussion. I appeal to all of us seated here today to think of our country first before we think of ourselves. This is our motherland. We need to protect her desirelessly. Thank you, and God bless you, Professor Mushai Mushiri, the Vice Chancellor of Karatina University. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. A beautiful round of applause to the DVC and, of course, Vice Chancellor in absentia. Makofi tafadhali. If we put our strengths together, we can develop this country if we are united. Professor Alo Obudo has made it very clear that indeed here she has worked for 11 years and she's fondly referred to as what? Professor Nyawera. Makofi tafadhali kwa watu wa Karatina. Well done, well done. And that's the spirit we want to continue on with. We are one people. Let us safeguard our country. If Kenya is on fire, it burns with you and I. Change starts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman, indeed, as was confidently put in regards to him, that he does really a thankless job. What he does is so critical in this country. And just to appreciate him, please, on the screen, let us just appreciate him as he comes to talk to us and really firm up the theme of this event.
He has vast experience in mediation and dialogue, coordinating dialogue platforms as safe spaces for interaction between Kenyans, diverse stations and government to address pressing issues. He previously served as senior advisor on cohesion, peace and conflict resolution in the Executive Office of the President and Cabinet Affairs, as a Commissioner in the Judicial Service Commission, as well as former General Secretary of the Geneva-based World Council of Churches. Please welcome the Chairman, National Cohesion and Integration Commission, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia.
Big round of applause. Karibu.
Asanteni sana. Your Grace, Archbishop Moheria, Your Lordship, Bishop Professor Gaugalo, Professor PLO Lumumba, Professor Munene Macharia, Mr. Javas Biyambo, the acting VC, and who is also the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academics, Professor Nyawira, Alhaji Hassan Olenando, the elders present today, the senior leadership of Karatina University, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Jambo. Praise the Lord. Salam alaikum. Allow me to teach you a greeting that we have made the NCIC greeting in occasions like today. When I say Amani, you say Milele. When I say Milele, you say Amani. It's as simple as that. Let me see what good students you are. Amani, Milele. Milele. Amani, Milele. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. First of all, I really want to say how honored I feel today to have been invited as the chief guest of this August event. I also want to start by congratulating Karatina University on organizing this annual event. And this year's 2022 National Cohesion and Integration Week. I want to thank you for doing the work of NCIC pro bono. Because, yes, clap for Karatina University. And I really wish that other universities would learn from Karatina, because that way it will be possible for us to really do this work that is so critical for the peace, cohesion, and integration of Kenya. As you all know, cohesion and integration is core to what we do at the NCIC, and it has also been a key element in my own life and in my career. When I look at our country, I see a nation that has resilience and fortitude to succeed and push forward no matter the costs. We are a nation of hard workers and a nation of innovators and of dreamers. Our ambition to continue to be better overshadows any tribal or religious boundaries. We train, work, and befriend each other, no matter the race, color, creed, or tribe. And not only do we befriend each other across the tribes and the races, but we also intermarry. But we know that every 4 years, Kenya is always a stable forward-looking country until we get to an election year such as this year of 2022. The problem, as the Vice Chancellor has stated, is not a new one. It's as old as the independence of Kenya, perhaps even before, as perhaps we might be able to show during the panel discussions, that it existed even before independence, and to some extent, it didn't happen by chance. It was even a policy of colonial government, which, unfortunately, we have continued with after independence, even though not as a stated policy. Let me start by identifying land as one of, if not the root cause of violence, including what we see as election-related violence. Land. As far back as 1969, there was what was called the Nandi Hills Declaration. And I just wanted to read two of the declarations, which was unveiled on 27th July 1969 by Jean-Marie Seronnet. Number 3 of the Nandi Hills Declaration states, and I quote, "Notwithstanding any legal fiction to the contrary, every grain of soil and every square centimeter of land in Tinderet area generally, and the Nandi Hills location in particular belongs under God to the Nandi people. And every non-Nandi, whether an individual, a farm, or a corporation farming in the district or in the Tinderet area, is a temporary tenant at the will of the Nandi." Number 4, no land transaction, whether past, present, or future, between Nandi and a non-Nandi in the nature of sale in a Tinderet area or any other part of Nandi district shall be recognized as having any validity whatsoever. Any compensation, interference with the tenure over the land affected shall be limited strictly to actual visible physical improvements. Those who are as old as I am, I don't think there are many here, but the Nandi Hills Declaration was talk of earthquakes these days. That was an earthquake that time. What I want to say at the onset is that land was and remains so emotive in Kenya that it still is a source of conflict. It is true that every election year, our GDP growth slumps and the propensity for violence increases, essentially creating a limbo in which we enter and exit every 5 years. Sometimes more scattered and bruised than at other times. This cycle is, of course, most emphasized when we consider the events of 2007-2008 post-election violence that brought us to the brink as a nation. Indeed, so traumatic was this event that the NCIC was birthed in the wake of the post-election violence of 2007-2008. As sometimes I tell my commissioners, we in NCIC will be considered to have been very successful if we work ourselves out of business. If there were to be no violence during elections, if there were to be cohesive and integrated communities in Kenya, if all Kenyans will have access to services and opportunities, then NCIC will have no reason to continue to be. Now, in my time at the NCIC, I have had time to reflect on the causes of the violence and the peculiar nature of the 5-year cycles. It is my considered opinion that Kenya suffers from a collective trauma when it comes to elections. As it was stated by the Vice Chancellor, when the year of election is nigh, there are people who prepare, they pack their bags, and they go home, wait until after the elections, and then go back to what then perhaps is not home. This trauma is based on the fact that we do not trust the arbiters of elections. We suffer from trust deficit. The IEBC in all its forms has not had the trust of the people nor of the politicians, be it in the Mlolongo system of the mid-1980s or indeed with electronic registers as it is today. This lack of trust leads to opportunities of violent rejection of the polls. Combine this with the fact that ethnic mobilization cements a view that a certain tribe is a beneficiary of theft of the polls, then we have a direct connection to ethnic conflict. Further, or the second reason that I have come to identify is the state of hopelessness driven by constant grievance politics and a cycle of bad news that the public is generally being harangued by bad news, leading to even less trust in their government. This also means that Kenyans lose hope in their future, blinded by a political class that is forever painting the bleakest of pictures. This despondent and hopeless electorate is doubly troubled by not caring enough to vote right, and also being so angry and traumatized that violence is an option they are willing to take. Therefore, the NCIC has had no choice but throw itself at the task of peace and cohesion building. Taking cognizance of our role as the conscience of the nation and recognition of our unique position, we notably mainstreamed cohesion in institutions of higher learning. To do this, the Commission put matters of cohesion and peace in the curriculum-based, competence-based curriculum, and we have been facilitating the establishment of Amani clubs in learning institutions, besides having structured engagement with educational administrators on cohesion and integration matters. So far, we have had 1,125 teachers across 25 counties who have been trained, and we have functional Amani clubs established in over 1,000 schools across the country. We have also conducted ethnic audits of diverse institutions and levels of government to ensure equity in resource distribution and diversity in the makeup of government employees. So for NCIC, we have also conducted ethnic audits of the civil service, county public service, public universities, parastatals, and commissions. This has greatly increased the inclusion of minority communities in public employment. The ethnic audits have progressively improved inclusion of minority communities in public employment. For instance, the first Oroma was recruited in university employment, and the first DESNAC in county employment following affirmative action efforts of the University of Nairobi and Marsabit County, respectively. So the first Oroma to be employed in Nairobi University was following our ethnic audit in employment in universities. And the first, as I have said here, Dasenmark was employed by the Mandela government. We have also conducted cutting-edge research in ensuring that the government and the public is aware of what factors affect peace building. The research that we have undertaken includes the 5 main areas. The first is a study on gangs and their impact on national cohesion. There are now almost 100 gangs who are recruited mainly by politicians, and our study shows that during or just before the election year and during the election year, these gangs increase. Some of them organized by politicians, others becoming as creative as Kenyans are. They know that they'll be needed. If a politician wants goons that are going to make trouble for their opponent, then they are available for hire. This is a very dangerous development in this country, because that is how non-state organizations that are well armed eventually might end up even competing with the national police and the national army. The second area of study is the status of social cohesion in Kenya. The third is unveiling endemic conflict in the Sugutu Valley Triangle. And that, I must say that there has been tremendous progress in Suguta Valley Triangle, as perhaps some of you know. The fourth is ethnic interaction and tolerance among Kenyans. And the fifth is a study on ethnic stereotypes and coded language. In this area, particularly on coded language, I wanted to say that we have found out that the FM radios that are in ethnic and vernacular, these are the ones that now are involved in what qualifies as hate speech more than anything else. Of course, the other area is online, is in the social media. We have agreed with the councils of elders that they will be monitoring on a daily basis these FM radios, because this is where now toxic language is carried on a daily basis. We are also in the process of developing a lexicon where which will be in English and Swahili, but also including vernacular in a number of areas. So this is an area that I wanted to mention, that it is being developed by NCIC. This research and others that we have done are our contribution to the academic and the public discourse of peace building and cohesion, giving insights to all state and non-state actors on how to handle peace and cohesion matters from an informed position and angle. It is against this backdrop that we as the NCIC, all of us here, and all Kenyans of goodwill must rise to the challenges of our times to ensure a better and brighter future. First, we must restore trust and confidence in and among our communities, and trust in the government and institutions. We must show that the Kenyan economy is not always falling apart, that not every civil servant is corrupt, and most importantly, that the IEBC knows how to count accurately and verifiably. This state will create a situation where our country can relax during elections, knowing that the will of the people is what is reflected in election results. As we build trust in government, we will then also be able to create a nation where communities can heal and reconcile. Our communities will no longer view government as a tool only for the benefit of certain tribes to which the presidency has been one. But instead, we will be able to see the development that happens all over the country and understand that we are all people facing similar challenges, but with the same goals and common destiny. Once we build trust in inclusive government, we will ensure that Kenyans have the perfect cure for trauma, which is hope that springs eternal. So hope, building trust is one. The next is hope. A hopeful person is careful about who he votes for and is careful to protect peace and the opportunity. A hopeful person does not want to destroy, but instead wants to build. It is thus our hope that the nation follows the example of the NCIC, which this year was, and very recently voted, the most inclusive workplace by, I forget the organization that rated as the best inclusive commission in Kenya. We must remember that when the NCIC insisted that all levels of government must show the face of Kenya, we achieved higher inclusion. We must remember that when the NCIC said we need to have a wall of fame and shame, the incidence of hate speech among our leaders reduced. We must remember that when we stated that Kenya needs political, social, and criminal consequences for hate speech, our politicians toned down. I do not mention these things to brag, but rather to implore you to join us in the journey dubbed Election Bilanoma, a journey towards violence-free elections that is made up of a few things: a dash of faith in Project Kenya, a lot of hope in a big, bright future for us and our children, and love for each other and for the nation. Like St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, let there be these three things and remain in our hearts and minds: faith, hope, and love. For our actions will follow our thoughts, and when that happens, we will be a healed and reconciled people headed for the future we all desire, future characterized by political stability, economic prosperity, which is justly distributed, and social cohesion. I thank you for listening to me.
Well, thank you so much indeed. Another beautiful round of applause for Reverend Dr. Kobia. Thank you so much. Amani, Milele, Nam. We are a nation of hard workers. Our desire to be better overshadows our cultural and religious affiliations. We are a stable and forward-looking country until we are faced with an election. And so there is indeed need for us to change. We want to now change over and focus on the panel discussion. National Dialogue on Cohesion and Integration, reflecting on our past and contemplating the future. You know, I remember starting out as a journalist. It was my first time to report on an election in our country, and definitely was looking forward just like everybody else. You see, we woke up in the morning, eyes on the screen, went to vote. As a young person, it was a great moment. And I can only imagine there are those who will be voting for the first time, 15 years since 2007. And then all of a sudden, reporters on the ground are saying, we can't even come out. We can't even report the way we would want. We are in danger, and we're wondering, wait a minute. You're supposed to tell us what's happening. Now you're focusing on your survival. 2007.
The thousands of homes that are destroyed by arsonists, thousands of families that migrated in fear of their lives to other regions of the country, the uncounted incidences of rape of women and young girls that have gone unreported.
Of course, you know how the story ended, and we celebrate that. Then
campaigned against one another. We have said nasty things about each other. We have hurt one another. On my behalf, Ndugu, I ask for your forgiveness.
And definitely we hope this narrative continues on. But as we come closer to an election, we must really all be part of the conversation. And as I welcome the moderator of the session, I was really concerned. This cartoon really depicted what is happening in the country at the moment. And you wonder, okay, are we really reflecting on our past? Are we really contemplating on the future that we want for this country? And so I want you to be part of this conversation. As DVC Prof said, if this country burns, it will burn with you and I and our children. and we should not allow anybody to succeed in burning this country. And to guide us through that particular discussion, I'd kindly call upon my colleague, Noah Kipkemboi. Karibu sana. Makofi yake tafadhali. Welcome, we celebrate you. Guide us through that discussion.
Amani, milele, amani, milele. The young people are not talking. Amani, milele. And I know how we finish that conversation is normally God with us. God is good all the time. All the time, God is good, and that is His nature. Wow. And for this particular situation, we say, Amani, milele, milele, amani, and that is Kenya's nature. Wow. Have we gotten that? Amani, milele, and that is Kenya's nature. Wow. Amazing. Clap for yourself. Beautiful, beautiful. My name is Noah Kipkemboi, part of Standard Media Group. KTN Home is where we are streaming our services, and I'm very glad that we will be joined this morning by a very able panel. This panel, to be honest, if I was to conduct conversation with them with the time that we've been given, it won't be enough. But we'll try to keep time. So at this particular moment, I'd like to welcome our panelists, first starting with our guest of honor, who's just given us opening remarks, Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia. Please approach and sit right next to me, right here. Thank you very much, sir. Beginning makofi tafadhali. All right. Next, we have Archbishop Anthony Muheria, Catholic Archbishop, Archdiocese of Nyeri. Please appreciate Archbishop. Thank you very much. Next, we have Professor PLO Lumumba, founder of PLO Lumumba Foundation, advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to welcome on stage Professor Macharia Munene, who is a lecturer at United States International University. Please appreciate Professor. And representing Dr. Jackson Olasepitu, who is the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya, is Bishop Professor Joseph Galgalo. Please appreciate him as he joins us on stage. And lastly, this is a familiar face that we've seen on our media stations, quite an eloquent young gentleman. I'd like to welcome Jervas Bigambo Arafat, who is a lawyer and governance expert on stage with us. And at this particular moment, I will step up just for us to have an awesome interaction. This one seems so distant. Professor Kobia, let me sit next to you so that, you know, it's about cohesion. And I want to social distance, which is unacceptable. So without wasting much time, because we can talk for years, for hours, based on the experience that we have here with us, I'd like to briefly, in less than a minute, when you talk about cohesion and integration, briefly from this conversation, what do you bring, what do you want us to have at the end of this conversation? What should be our expectations from you? Starting with you, sir. They're on.
Well, thank you. What I would like to see or happen at the end of this dialogue is that everyone who is here will have been convinced that they are ambassadors and the champions of peace and cohesion, and they will go and promote the same in their communities.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, sir. Before I proceed to Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, I'd like also to welcome, as part of our panel, Actually, I'll resume my initial position. In the spirit of cohesion, you have to create room for other people to be part of the discussion. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Alhaj Hassan Olenado, who is the National Chairman of Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, SUPKEM. Thank you very much. All right. So as he approaches, Mr. Alhaj, remember I was using your microphone. Do you trust me enough, or should we sanitize? In the spirit of cohesion. All right. This will be your microphone. Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So let us proceed. Professor PLO, what is your expectation from this discussion?
My expectation is that the leading politicians in Kenya, who in 2001 were present, all of them without exception, at a conference held in the year 2001, where Professor Ali Mazrui said, if Kenyan politics are ethnic prone, can we have a constitution that is ethnic proof? That these politicians, who in truth are the ones who cause chaos in this country, listen to us and say with their mouths what they believe in their hearts, that this country may be saved. That is my wish.
Thank you very much, Professor PLO, our politicians. Now, next, we have Professor Macharia Munene. Your expectations, sir?
Thank you very much. Let me just make a small adjustment. I've been associated with USIU for so long that even when I've left, I'm still...
You had cohesion and integration with USIU for so long?
It is too strong.
Okay.
Now, my expectation, first, people should not worry too much. Kenya is safe. And it will be even safer if we work at it. Peace does not exist in itself. It's something you work at. And so everyone here and throughout the country has an obligation to work at peace because it does not exist. The election coming are just an episode. And if you watch it properly, actually it doesn't look very bad. People should not worry about this election. It looks, just look at the slogans of the two leading camps.
Okay.
Kenya Kwanza, Azimio. Are those not uniting terminologies? So we should give hope that we should not worry too much about chaos, because there will be no chaos.
Indeed.
And if there is no chaos, mainly because we are going to work at it to ensure that nothing goes wrong.
Definitely.
So I expect that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Archbishop Muheria.
Thank you very much. My expectation is that we are going to awaken amongst the populace of our country a feeling of humanity, restoring us to the dignity that we should be. A process of inoculation, call it vaccination, just as we've gone through the COVID virus attack, that our country, our citizens are going to be the stronghold of the future, that we are able to speak to them, to empower them so that they are less easily manipulated, less easily engaged in negativity and inhumanity, and that we can regain and restore the humanness of our nation that is a greatness of Kenya.
Wow, beautiful. Professor Galgalo.
Thank you very much. My expectation from those of us present here, but let me speak to the whole country, that every Kenyan will realize that we all desire one and the same thing: good life, progress, success in life. to go about our daily lives without interruption or hindrance, and in realizing that, make a firm commitment to work for peace, cohesion, integration with all. Let's work for collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Mr. Bigambo, what's your expectation from these conversations?
Thank you so much. For me, I think my expectation would be that we will be true to ourselves, to one another as citizens, and as persons who've got identities that we do not want to use to denigrate others as individuals or groups. That this forum and this opportunity here will be a chance for us to embrace a kind of post-Fanonian examination of socio-political thought in this country and realize that the social and political fabric of Kenya can only be as strong as we are or as weak as we are and wish to be. And perhaps thinking like Michael Jackson as he thought before me, I would say that I expect you and I today to speak to the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, because that's where the problem is. The person in the mirror is the person in the arena.
Very important, quoting the great Michael Jackson. Mr. Al-Haj, what should we expect from this conversation briefly?
Thank you. Greetings. Actually, I'm very, very hopeful that taking such conversations to institutions of higher learning is a realization that in these institutions is where the future of this country is, the future leadership of the country is. I've just come from Nairobi University, Masai Mara, yesterday, and there was a similar conversation, again, targeting the young population. To me, I'm very, very excited that if this is the trajectory that we have to take as a country. I'm also worried that every year, electioneering year, we tend to really go back to where we come from and mobilize our communities against one another. And I think such conversations will help us, will enable us to understand and also actually call to question our Kenyanness. When do we become Kenyans and when we become ethnic people? That at one point we call ourselves the tribes that we come from, and at another time we are also Kenyans at the same time. And I think apart from this conversation, we have to find a way of immunizing young people, really to confront the reality that each and every Kenyan has no any other home except Kenya.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you very much. Well, gentlemen, it's astounding that conversations around integration and the country coming together, it happens always around this time. Always. Since I was young, and I'm not that old, yeah, to be honest, from the look of things, unless it's giving away. But speaking to you, Dr. Kobia, NCIC has been at the center of bringing this change and integration in our country. What are we doing in between? Why is the conversation not top-notch, right there, always at this gear? We always have this cycle of, on the 5th year, we are top-notch, then we go down, we wait till the electioneering year, then we come up again. Why a little bit of that disparity?
Well, in my speech, I shared the work that NCIC does, especially in helping our institutions to live up to our constitution when it comes to ethnic diversity in the employment and establishment. I referred to the Amani clubs in over 1,000 schools. I referred to the studies that have been done on the index of national cohesion. So I'm mentioning this to say that this curve that you have mentioned, yes, it goes up, you know, as the anxiety and what I call even a trauma during the election year. But then in between is trying to help Kenyans to understand the beauty and the richness of diversity, ethnic diversity, religious diversity, and other diversities which are, you know, divine ordained, I must say, is because of the way God created this world with the diversity that we must learn. That diversity is not a threat, diversity is an asset.
Yes.
So this, what I shared with is what we do in between elections. But then I must say that the challenges that we face continue. And that is why very often, and as you know, many refer to NCIC as a hate speech commission, because in between we have investigations on toxic language and using Article 33 of the Constitution, which outlaws hate speech. And it is because of that that we have been able to help even politicians themselves to understand that they cannot continue to utter one's phrases and behavior that is alienating one Kenya against the other. So this is what we do in between.
Okay.
And if we were to report that to the nation, you understand that we are kept very busy. But of course, this is the time that I must say that as NCIC, we really feel the heat because we are trying to carry the Kenyan people with us to ensure that there is a peaceful electoral process. Okay. Elections bila norma before, during, and after the elections.
Definitely, election bila norma. Now, quoting a tweet, because these are verifiable sources these days. You have to be careful what you say even on social media. And social media has been used as one of those places where, you know, you can poke some holes in this ethnic discussion that you're having in the country and use it to antagonize. But quoting a tweet tweeted on 15th of September 2021, Professor PLO Lumumba, they should verify you. Twitter, if you're watching, please do something about that. Let us bail out the water of negative ethnicity while it is still ankle deep. I paraphrase Chinua Achebe. Elections are 11 months away, and drums of ethnicity are sounding complete with clashes. Kenyans of goodwill, speak out before the waters reach our necks. Our politicians and their rhetoric. How has that evolved in the few months? Now it's 130 days to election, sir.
Thank you very much. I seldom tweet, but I tweeted in that manner. But permit me to say that we ought to look at our country in a historical context. You will remember that when we were fighting for the 2010 Constitution, we took the view that a new constitutional dispensation would create a new political culture. The answer is it has not. I've been here for some time and I've had the same politicians since 1992, 1997, 2002, 2007, and they are the very same during the forthcoming elections. At one time they are together, at one time they are on the opposite side of each other, saying different things different times. And they appeal to our ethnic emotions. And I keep on telling those who care to hear that our politicians speak with both sides of the mouth. When they are addressing their ethnic groups, they say totally different things than when they are speaking to the rest of Kenyans. And unfortunately, we respond to them in that way. And as long as we don't change our political culture, we are not going to solve the problem. And you, the media, are part of the problem. In the last 1 year, I've written to all media houses, telling them to look at their headlines from the year 2021. The headlines are the same, almost the same. Kambas are doing this, Luos are doing this, Kikuyus are doing this. When you repeat that often, then that is what feeds the fire of ethnicity. And the net effect, as I conclude, is that the work that NCIC is doing then becomes a band-aid solution to what is a cancerous problem. And I'm not as optimistic as my good friend Professor Macharia. We may not have clashes, but we are weakening the foundation of the nation every day. This is a very young country. It will turn 59 this year, very young. And if we continue to shake its foundation, 40 years from today, it may not be there. We had better warn ourselves because of this rhetoric. Thank you.
Professor Munene, from Professor Pierlo's address, it is a double-edged sword where we are standing with what we have. And I'll come to the question of the media because we have to hold ourselves responsible. But you seem to be very optimistic, especially with the taglines that you're seeing. Has the political culture evolved over time based on those taglines?
No, it is still evolving. And I like being optimistic, because then it gives me hope to move on every day. There's no disagreement between me and PLO. We agree on a lot of things. In fact, if anyone knows Kenya's constitution making and the constitution, he has been there and he knows. But there is something about optimism. It gives hope. And yes, we have had some very rough times, which should have been avoided. 2007 could have been avoided, no doubt about that. So there was failure in the country. And it was usually leadership failure in 2007. And even now, there is likely to be what? Leadership failure. Now, that is something that we need to guard against. And since we know that, then we can work at it. Yes, we are a very young country, barely 60 or so. And we have gone through tribulations. But there are some good things about it. We have had elections regularly, even if they are not perfect. We move on. We have more and more people getting involved than ever before. Yes, we have goons, hired goons, and they are waiting to be given whatever they get to go and cause disturbances. But with the knowledge that we have, and with the concerted effort of the media, I think it's been pointed out that sometimes the media has not been very good. With the concerted effort of our religious leaders, Bishop, Alhaji, we need you people to say every day that this does not have to happen. Kenya has been on an identity crisis ever since its inception. It was created by the British for their own purposes, and we used to have two identities. For Africans, you are either a native when you are serving British interest, and when you question British interest, you become a tribe. Now, at independence, we try to minimize the tribe to build the nation. We are still building the nation. And the policy which Reverend Kobe, there used to be policies of discrimination, tribalism, in order to keep the country divided. So we are still at that stage of moving forward.
All right.
And I think it's more a mental problem than a physical problem.
Yes.
We do have, if I may finish by saying this, not just in Kenya, but in the entire African continent, people who think first as Englishmen or Frenchmen or Portuguese, and then they try to think as Africans. The conflict between those positions are with us. And when you are trying to get out of that condition, let us not forget that there are people who enjoy the divisions in us. And they will continue pumping in this thing. So I'm still hopeful.
Definitely.
And more Kenyans are enlightened. It's good the university is doing this because it's part of that combat.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Archbishop, you spoke about restoring humanity, and Prof has just touched something sensitive there about identity of a people. If you get rid of somebody or a country explaining who it really is or who that person is, literally the identity, then it trickles down to other aspects. Humanity, as you put it. And your point, you say that we need to restore humanity. When did we lose humanity? What led to this loss, and how do we restore it?
Maybe just briefly where we've come from and what came in our history, a bit piggybacking on what the former speakers have said. We went through a democratization, a social and political process in which democracy and constitution was put as the epitome of what we'll be as a nation. But we forgot the soul of the nation. We did not put ethical considerations as we were doing the democratization process or thinking through. And this is about that every one of us has got an inherent, innate human dignity that must be recognized and is recognized by a constitution, by the way, but it has become an appendix. So we do not appreciate one another by what is essential, but by accidental additives. It's like describing a favorite daughter by start describing her, she's got a beautiful nose, she's got this height, but the essential thing is she's your daughter. That's the most essential. The humanity, the core, is what we have to address. And that is addressing more the heart. So when we have the problems, we have more started in the head. Why is this? A very kind of analytical, pragmatic, but trying to change the way people think, but we are not addressing how they feel and how they appreciate one another. So cohesion integration must start in that appreciation. And those two, the human dignity, is nurtured in religious institutions and also in healthy families. So I do believe that that is one of the things we must also address. So coming back to what then has, in our state where we are, what has happened about the humanity. Whenever clashes begin, in any nation, history and world politics, the first thing they do is they label the other as non-human. They call you hyenas, they call you dogs. They first empty. And this is the political rhetoric that we hear. They want to make us look at others no longer in their dignity. The man driving a V8 and the man sleeping in Mathare mental hospital have the equal human dignity. None has an extra dignity than the other. So we should not use status or religion or tribe as the defining attribute when we are speaking and accepting one another. So this is why this dignity is so essential, that I look at a person and I take time, not just being this immediacy thinking, I take time to know what's deeper in him or her that first as a person, a son, a daughter of God. Second, a human being, gifted in different ways, whether disabled or more abled, they're still with the fullness of dignity. Once we embrace that, then the ethnicity becomes a medal, an added decoration to yourself. It's not a negativity. So my belonging to a tribe just enhances my being because there is something inherent that we all embrace. So that's why I feel the discussion of dignity is a very important foundation, and our walk to cohesion and integration must be a walk with the heart more than the walk to the head.
Wow. Because
often we give all the laws, all the tremendous discussions at the level of, don't you understand the Constitution or says, but the heart is not there. And these politicians, allow me to say it in this rather negative, slighting way, know how to mix up the heart, because somehow tribe still appeals to heart because it's not irrational. Ethnic, divisive, and broken ethnical pride appeals to the heart in a very negative and very volatile way. So that's why we must mend.
Definitely.
That heart.
Wow. Appeal to the heart, not the head. Very important. And one of the places that we find, people being vulnerable to the core is in our religious element. Yeah? In our connection to our deity, because we understand we are open. He can see. He knows it all. And that very nature is one that has been tilted, because to be honest, when there is political division out here, people taking sides, I know we are children of God, all of us, but sometimes you can feel the tension a little bit. And it is even in church. So the church culture, coming to you, Professor Galgalo, where we feed the soul that has been neglected for so long, what should we do different? Should we have a different approach to contribute even further to this discussion of integration?
Thank you very much. Yes, definitely, not only the church, but the entire religious communities in Kenya, the religious affiliations in Kenya have a great role in shaping our thinking, in informing in influencing our morality, our ethics, and all that. But before I come to specifically say something on the role of the church, because that's the one I will speak for, let me just mention this, an observation on the question of identity that you have raised. Kenya is a beautiful country, but with huge diversities. That these diversities, as beautiful as it is, it's often more of a bane than boon. It's more of a curse to us than blessing. And you will realize that close to 50 different language groups, by virtue of historical accident, if you may call it so, have found ourselves within one border of a state called Kenya. And to become cohesive or one in terms of shaping our identity as Kenyans, I think we've not worked hard enough for it. And sometimes that which we have done in terms of how we conduct affairs of public in Kenya have been counterproductive, dividing us more than bringing us together. Let's face it, although we call ourselves constitutional democracy, although Kenya is governed according to the rule of law, these are only part, in some sense, of how we really actually conduct our affairs. The real superstructure, the building blocks of who we have become is essentially tribal. That's our primary identity markers. And it has actually been weaponized, unfortunately, by the political elites, and deliberately so that they use tribal affiliations, aggregations, to divide and conquer, and use it as stepping stones to achieve their political ambitions. And because of that very strong culture, although Kenya is said to be close to 85% Christian, according to the 2019 census, our primary identity marker, if you ask a Christian what faith they profess, they would say, yes, I am a Christian. But that is not their primary marker in terms of what informs their ethical choices, their moral universe is informed more by the tribal, the cultural orientation to which they so strongly belong.
Okay.
And so we must always have that in mind. The church has a lot of work to do. We may point fingers to people who have been very specifically charged with responsibilities. NCIC, IEBC, multi-sectoral agencies, and all this. But we ourselves, we have a responsibility to work hard through education systems, through faith orientation, the way we reach out through our evangelism, to preach peace, but also orient peace as a way of life, as a way to be, to touch people not only at the mind level, like His Grace the Archbishop have said, but at the heart, so that truly they say, this is who I am. I cannot do this. I shall do this. Is my responsibility. First and foremost, we will preach peace, but will not just stop at preaching. We will work hard as a church to build communities of faith who are peaceful, so that peace becomes a project for life. And people are oriented to be their brothers and sisters' keeper, to be lovers of their neighbors, and build peace together as far as it is concerned. But secondly, so that I finish very quickly, the church also, we must very strongly play the role of advocacy for this nation. We must be the eyes and the ears. And we have competitors who very powerfully shape opinion in this country, including the media. Regardless of these voices, which sometimes are not healthy in the way they direct or shape opinions in the society, the church will work as the advocate for the truth. Yes. We will speak the truth to power, that be. Our eyes are open to see that IEBC does that which has been mandated to do, that multi-sectoral agencies work as they should and meet all the expectations, and we will shout from the rooftops if they do not do that which the law has mandated them to do, so that we will be the prophetic voice for this society. Thirdly and finally, the church must play the role of transformation in society. We have to work with communities in empowerment programs. People who are empowered are liberated. They can think for themselves. They cannot easily be swayed by, let's say, these politicians who play God often. You saw in the cartoon that you showed us, with them flying above our heads and us dying on the ground with begging bowls. That must change, because the church must work for transformation to empower society so that they can have voice for themselves.
That is true.
Thank you.
And in fact, to build on that, I want to bring in Mr. Al-Haj, because, you have a voice, but you have competing voices. To be honest, it's a competition out there, and everyone is trying to sway the attention of Kenyans and win their heart as much as they are misdirecting their heads. As the religious community, from your standpoint, what are those practical efforts that you're making to make sure, not only for this election, even the previous and the future, that Kenyans are sticking together cohesively?
Thank you. I think Professor Munene said something, actually, I think I'm right the name, about the foundation of this country. In my view, our foundation has some issues that have never been addressed, even during the independence of this country. And that has carried us many, many times, that's worked with us. Those challenges are still working with us up to today. In the religious sector, in Islam, for example, God says in the Holy Quran, we have created you from male and female, from made you peoples, tribes, races, and the best of you is the one who fears God. Which means, and he says that the only reason why humanity were created from all the faces that we have today, community, is only for us to know one another. Because it's very easy to tell which community does this person come from, which race does this one come from, because of how we look like. Okay. But among us, the best among us is the one who fears God. There is nothing else. You cannot say, I am the best because I come from this particular community and this kind of stuff. So that is our foundation of building relationships and also respecting humanity in general. As an African from the communities we come from, actually when Archbishop Muheria was talking about the humanness in us, and I realized that I think we have a long way to go, because in the community where I come from, when you ask a young child who has passed out there, who have you seen out there, he will say, I have not seen anybody apart from this tribe. If, for example, I don't want to mention this so that I don't want to be invited by.
Be careful. Tread carefully.
Be careful. I don't want that invitation of NCIC.
Yes.
When you tell a kid, this is a very young child, you ask who has come to your home, he will say nobody. But somebody from certain community has come, which means that person is a nobody. He can now describe who that person is, but when you ask, the person means the person from that particular community. And when you also describe, for example, again, I like using the children because it's common with us. When you actually want even to tell the child you are ugly, because we joke with children that way, you have to say you are ugly like this tribe. And you mention that tribe that you think they are ugly. So the foundation of our kids, they grow up knowing that we are better off in terms of our looks, our culture, our behavior than these other tribes. And so we grow up with certain feelings, and that actually gets into our minds, and unfortunately sometimes even influences how we do our business, even in the religious sector. We try our level best to preach to preach to the people the unity of God and our creation, our responsibility, our roles and kind of stuff. But we still have that inherent feeling in our souls. And I think when we want to think about getting out of this kind of situation as a country, our conversation, but actually must begin in our own households. We cannot change our behavior, our culture, for example, if we only concentrate in the last years of our elections and we think we have done our in fact, to me, this is largely a firefighting strategy, but it may not really put off the fire. It's just temporarily put it off, but it will, after a while, the fire will be up. So we need to think about what is it that we need to do at the individual level. What could be my contribution in my own household to have a better Kenya tomorrow? And to me, I think that is what we need really to struggle with.
That's very important, and I'm glad NCIC is going even to schools to change that notion. Though I was a very handsome kid, I don't know what happened along the time, but I've always been good looking. But change that notion and mentality from a very young age to instill those values. In fact, we've discussed for the longest time national values. What are our national values? Do our children know these values, and do they embody them as they grow up? Which is a totally different discussion. I want to bring Mr. Bigambo. I know I reached to Professor, then I came back. I was giving you time because these are heavy ones. I've seen you in different programs discussing quite a number of issues, political issues to be specific. And Professor PLO mentioned the media. We are the mouthpiece, and many times you haven't used this power that has been granted to us by the people to boost and push for, cohesion in the country. So from where you sit as a governance expert, but as also a media practitioner, in a way that I've seen you practice media out there, what should we do different?
Well, thank you. First, sitting here in this chair, let me confess that I am not a merchant of hope, but a merchant of truth. And by such admission, I am not ready to agree with Professor Munene, then I can agree with Professor Noam Chomsky and Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who speak about various forms of framing and identity. For example, in his book titled Understanding Power, Professor Noam Chomsky speaks about the manner in which there is some kind of unity between the media and the elites of society because of certain interests. And when you look at and examine the manner in which media in Kenya conducts its activities and business, first you'll need to start appreciating that there are certain politicians and political interests, for that matter, in the ownership of the media. Okay. To what extent can a media owned by a politician air a story against that owner? Very difficult. Secondly, when we look at the issues of cohesion and tribalism and nationalism, then we get to a point of something we call categorical identities. Now, nationalism is an identity, ethnicity is an identity, and because of these identities, they inform the framing of our thinking about issues, whether they're ideologies, etc. This thinking informs our biases. It's these biases also that leads us to what has been called by even Koigo Amwere as negative ethnicity and pursuit of it. Now, seated here this morning in this chair, I don't want to speak truth to power. I want to speak truth to cohesion. One, as you sit there and as you sit here, have you heard, or you yourself, have you done this? Ever told your son or your daughter, don't bring me a spouse from a certain community? Yourself, your friend, or your neighbor. Then why should we blame politics? Politics is not the problem. We are the problem. That's why I spoke about Michael Jackson saying, speaking to the person in the mirror, and that person being in the arena. You are in the arena. The other thing is this. Media, of course, we know it to be a conveyor belt. Of course, they've got certain interests that they push for. But when reporters go to the field, they come to report that which has taken place. So whether it's you or a politician, the problem is who we are, our ideological biases, and the framing of mind. In this country, well, of course, I know that Professor Munene and my good elder Olenado has indicated that the problem started from the foundation of this country. But I think it's beyond that. I think we have never negotiated our past. And because we have never truthfully negotiated our past, we are incapable of negotiating a very cohesive and better future for ourselves.
Okay.
We are just doing patchworks. These patchworks are not creating a very strong fabric. There's a problem there.
Okay.
And if we don't speak truth to ourselves, then I think we are doing a very minimalistic business. And I sit here saying that if speaking the truth is a very big sin, in this room today, I want to be the most offensive man alive.
Okay.
In closing, I would say this, that we need to see partners in the media. We need to create partnership amongst ourselves, with the church, with politicians, because they come from among us. I know perhaps here there could be somebody nursing an ambition in this election or the next. I've seen student leaders here. I was one in my time, and Professor Lumumba was one in his time. So politicians come from among us. But what kind of politicians do we admire?
Okay.
Because these politicians that are aired in the media, or by the media rather, are people that we support, are people that are our fathers, our brothers, our mothers, our sisters, etc.
Okay.
In May 2021, there is a report publication number 449 by Afrobarometer and the University of Nairobi, spoke about and conducted a very critical research and the statistics about which I want to speak on just 2 points. One, that 9 out of 10 Kenyans strongly identify with their nation and their ethnic orientation, which means 93%. Secondly, that 7 out of 10 Kenyans identify and take much pride, negatively so, with their ethnic orientation. Today, how many people do you know who've lost jobs or lost opportunities or failed to get an employment opportunity because of their ethnic extraction?
All right.
Today, if you wanted to give an opportunity to someone, first, chances are somebody will want to think about where do they come from, which tribe. Yet when you're looking for a house help, you're looking for a lawyer because you think they're faithful.
Oh, Bigambo. Professor, we'll start with Professor Pielo Lumumba. As we come to you, Professor, maybe just to bring to our attention, we're going to be coming to the Q&A session, and we have online questions on mentimeter.com, but also on live. But right of response or builder.
I just wanted to say something. We have attempted to negotiate this country. And I want you to remember in 1988, the Saitoti Commission went around this nation and spoke to the nation. Whether you agree with what they said is a different debate. In the year 2000 through to the year 2005, we went to every village in this country as the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission went to all universities. And we negotiated our country. We had a referendum in 2005 which failed. Ultimately, after the 2007 elections, we voted for the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Our problem is our memories are short and selective. And I'll give 2 things just to tell you how short and selective our memories were. We said, for example, with regard to political parties, that in order to create cohesion, a political party must have a national character and must be present in at least 24 counties. During our very watch, we have seen politicians amending the Electoral Act to allow for the creation of village parties and to allow this coalition that we are seeing now. Short memories, selective memories. Lastly, tomorrow there'll be a judgment. I do not know where it will go. BBI. BBI is reminiscent of what we did to the Independence Constitution between 1964 and 1969. We know what we said, but via BBI, there was an attempt, which some of us still support, to dismember the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We have negotiated our country. Our memories are short and selective. And what we do, and this is what threatens to destroy this country. Politics has become such a big industry. If you want to be wealthy without much effort, become a politician. And that is why there is cutthroat competition for political office. You who come from different tribes, you are merely baggage who are brought to the political mortgage market for purposes of negotiation. Your ethnic leader says, I have the Kambas, here they are, give me my share. I have the Kikuyus, give me my share. And until we liberate ourselves from that, despite the best intention of the best of us, we'll always have these circles of talking about elections which threaten the nation.
Yes.
So we have tried.
Yes, sir.
But we have not negotiated in honesty.
All right. Wow. I want to give Archbishop right of responsive builder. Please
I'll be
proceed.
very brief. Thank you. I think two things. One, I want to talk, I agree we must look at the man on the mirror. But I do also think that the media have got another intention, which is business.
Okay.
And there is what we call spin. I do not agree media is telling us what's happening on the ground. I do not believe they are telling us the truth. I believe they are telling us their version and perspective and spin.
Okay.
And I think that must be addressed. And I want to link it with what Professor has said, PLO, which is the issue of greed is at the base of our failure and our rot.
Okay.
And that greed is about corruption, and is also about the interest of the media to make the most of all opportunities. Even a fist fight is money for the media. And so when we speak about cohesion, the antagonism itself is marketable, and it's what they try to put forward. So I want to speak about those two things. We must make the media ethical and not spin the negativity that they want us to know.
Right.
And second, we must still address, and that's why I feel I address the populace, not the leaders.
Okay.
The Kenyans must once more take hold of that greed does not lead us to the trap, like a bird is caught by a trap with maize.
Wow, beautiful. And I know, Prof, you want to give a response.
Yes.
It's 3 minutes to midday. At midday, since we are talking about our cultures, we have a short presentation from one of our cultural communities. Then we're going to go to the Q&A. Is that okay? So briefly in 2 minutes.
Okay. My friend there says he does not believe in hope. But I want to point out that there is no conflict at all between hope and truth. In fact, truth is the basis of hope. Because once you know the truth, you can map your way to ensure that you get the goal that you want. There is no conflict at all between truth and hope. Because if you are not truthful, your hope is baseless. And I'm not very happy promoting despair. No. Because then we lose hope, we die. And we don't want to die. After all, society is based on what? On hope.
Yes.
The education we give to our children is hope that later on you'll be a good person or a better person and the society will be better. Our religious leaders here, what do they promote?
Hope.
Hope. And if you ask them, the hope they promote is based on truth, not on something else. So there's no conflict between truth and hope.
All right. That's very important to note. In fact, the scriptures say that, faith, hope, and love, as you quoted. But the most important is love. It anchors all these others. And as you say, if you love somebody, then you have to be truthful. Yeah, the fruits of love, or the fruit of love, as we're told, kindness, righteousness, and whatnot. So it's midday. Let us take a breather, because we were starting to. If you can pour yourself a glass of water. And I don't know for our guests, why didn't we get water for our guests? That's another discussion, yeah? But we have an awesome presentation from one of our cultural communities briefly. Then we'll go to the Q&A. Is that okay, the panel? Lovely. So let us have the next presenters on stage. And we'll be watching comfortably here. The floor is yours. I can see Nyatiti. I can see the drums as they arrange themselves. Remember, this is Karatina University National Cohesion and Integration Week 2022, themed reflecting our past, contemplating our future. A round of applause to that wonderful crew. Up next. Beautiful. Amazing. All right. Wow, that is an amazing dance. I wouldn't give it a try, trust you me. Especially going down like this, I think I need to revisit my gym schedule. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told you we are coming to the question and answer session. But before we come to that, we can do all the dancing because we can organize ourselves on the ground and come and dance to represent our cultures. But in reality, on the ground, we are not cohesive at all. So there is a peace ambassador who's working with people on the ground. Some of these sentiments that have been mentioned here is that lack of unity from the core, from the grassroots. If we may have that peace ambassador, it was notified to me earlier on. Yes, sir, just approach. Is this the microphone that he'll use? Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate that. Please just be brief and tell us exactly what is happening on the ground, what are the nuances, and what can we do better in this season. Can we have a microphone to him? Thank you very much. The microphone is coming. But remember, we have questions right here at mentimeter.com. If you haven't asked your question, then it's www.menti.com. You can shoot your question there. The code is 4338. And my cameraman has decided to give me that silhouette, which is looking very beautiful. Thank you very much, sir. 7881. And all questions are trickling in. Please proceed and be brief. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Evans Mureithi Kariuki. I am a teacher by profession. I work in Eldoret, in one of the slum schools with a population of about 1,500. I work with the very poor, and issues of cohesion and integration boils down to us. And as we begin in this cosmopolitan place, we find that our learners come to school at a very tender age when they are fully cohesive. They integrate so well that these children, when they come to school, they become friends. To an extent that if you asked the child, what is the name of your friend? He says, my friend is my friend. I don't know his name. And these children are able to play together. They eat together. They learn together. They are fully innocent, fully in cohesion and fully integrated. But what happens as these children grow, they start realizing that your name is not the same as my name. Your surname is different from my surname. Our Christian names may be the same. Our Islamic name may be the same. And as they keep on growing, they start realizing again, the society has constructed a certain bias from one community to the other community. And that is when these children start realizing that this community is biased towards better performance in school, while the other is biased towards better performance in business circles. Later on, as they grow, they start learning that there are also other biases, and these biases are towards probably political divides. And I was coming out of school, I realized that certain children are already in different camps of politics because the parents have already put them towards those directions. But as a peace ambassador, I talk to these learners to understand themselves as identities within the society that are independent of their parents and of their communities. As teachers, at whatever level that we are supposed to calm down and put these children to grow with their own independent identities. I believe we have student councils, And these students, when they are in a chemistry class, in a chemistry lab, they are integrated, they are cohesive. It's not until that time when election for the student councils are around the corner that they start coalescing towards their regions where they come from. So there is an aspect here that we really need to look at in a very, very serious way so that we can be able to bring these young minds to understand that from our hearts, we are Kenyans.
Okay.
We've put a lot in our minds, but we've put so little in our hearts. I agree with His Grace, that we really need to talk to our hearts, such that we identify ourselves more as human beings, but not the bodies where we are made from, or where we come from. So, in our institutions and the lowest echelons of our society, we need to educate our masses in a direction that we are more human than what tribe we come from or what political persuasion we are inclined towards.
Okay.
And as Professor Munene has said, we need to give hope.
Okay.
Because we are looking at an education system in this country that is 150 years old, that talks about coming to school to get a better job. These jobs are not there. If a child that I taught 30 years ago still wants to be a teacher, I still occupy that position. Where does this teacher go? He's trained, yes, but where do you go? We need to change our curriculum to an entrepreneurial curriculum such that whenever a child exceeds a certain level of education, is able to be fixed in an entrepreneurial world where this child goes out and creates. This technology is taking out the jobs we are training our students for.
Okay.
A few years ago, we were employing so many bankers. Now the ATM has taken the jobs. Where do the trained bankers go? They start now looking for their tribes to fix them in the remaining few jobs for bankers. And that is where nepotism, tribalism, conflict begins. Because I am better trained than you, but because that person at the top of that institution, it comes from your community, gets that job. That is the beginning of conflict.
Okay.
But if we were to train our learners, our young people who are building a nation, despite the fact that the historical background of our nation is skewed towards certain issues, but the younger people making up the nation can now start looking at cohesion and integration in a different perspective. This will make peace for our country.
All right.
I want to be brief because of the time, but these are areas we will need to preach and preach without ceasing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A round of applause. Amazing. Now, I said we are in a Q&A question. If you have any question here, please just raise your hand. We'll take note of you. But we start with some of the questions that we've gotten on this particular platform, menti.com. So a lot of comments. Let's all promote peace. Very important. Kenya needs an honest and true citizens. Need honest and true citizens. I'm trying to look for a question. Let's just go down. We'll go through. So, is intercultural competence essential for democratic culture and social cohesion? Is intercultural competence essential for democratic culture and social cohesion? That is a very loaded question, to be honest. I don't know who will pick that up so that we distribute a number, then just answer them in tandem. Who's willing to pick that particular question up as part of our panel? Thank you very much, Archbishop. Let's move a little bit. How comes among soldiers, police officers, and indeed all disciplined forces represent all communities in one, have arms and ammunitions and are trained to use them, yet we don't hear of violence in military barracks or police stations? Anyone with a military background here? That might come in very handy. But that element of institution-wise, there is cohesion. But once we leave those reins and rails of the institution, there is a challenge of cohesion. Who might pick that up? I'll point to one of us to pick it up. Let's just go down. Yes. Have the NCIC incorporated the youths? Most of them are being used by politicians. We have people in the social media who are reminding Kenyans of the past. What can we do to ensure that the social media platforms are not platforms for disunity? That goes to NCIC. Thank you very much. Can we go down? So my question to NCIC: we have seen politicians uttering words that have been profiled as hatred. By the look of things, is the commission independent, since it's only a fraction of politicians who get summoned? You can feel it, right? The tension. Why? Are this holding spaces small? All right, let's take a look at, have we gone through? Yes, hate speech question again, we see there. Hate speech has always been the tool to divide the country. How do we find a lasting solution to this problem? Who will pick that up, the issue of utterances and hate speech? Thank you very much, Mr. Bigambo. Can we go down? I saw quite an interesting question. My question to media: we have politicized our news bulletins and whatever is presented. How is the media assisting Kenya fight ethnicity and disunity, having already media companies taking sides on what to air? I can't respond to this since I'm conducting the panel, as you can see. So I don't know whom I'll pass that to. The media. I'm tempted to give it to Professor Munene, who is very optimistic, and this is very judgmental of me. Let's go down kindly. Let's pick the last question, then we'll respond to that first batch of questions. Let's just go down. I saw quite an interesting question. To Professor P.L.O. Lumumba, you've always been negative about what's happening in this country. What are you ever positive about in this country? Are you a patriotic Kenyan? Let's stop it right there. I think you can start with the first response of NCIC, Daktari, the issue of the utterances that we're seeing and the people being held responsible. Please respond to that, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is a question that is asked every time we appear in the public. And I have tried to really convince Kenyans that NCIC is not biased. And because the question has come up again and again, I took, I did the the statistics about who we have investigated and either prosecuted or the case is in court. And what was the truth is that, in fact, there were more on the side of, leaning more on the side of Azimio la Umoja than in Kenya First. And this is the truth. And therefore, because I had actually been asked, by UNDA people several times, and that's why I did it. So I presented the figures in a press conference, I think 2 weeks ago, and therefore it is not true that we are biased. Secondly, there has been this issue of how we have dealt with those who have uttered the word Mandoadoa. And we were accused of having rushed to arrest Senator Lintore when he uttered Mandoadoa in Eldoret, and that we did not do the same with the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, when he uttered the same word in Wajir. But actually, the truth is that within 2 days, we had taken action against the two of them. There is usually a process by which NCIC does investigations and recommend arrest. And that is because we cannot just hear, what a politician has said and record it and photograph it with our phones, etc., because this is not admissible in court. Okay. And therefore, we have to make sure that what we have as evidence is what is recommended and accepted and admitted in court. So that is actually the truth of the matter. Okay. We did, within 2 days, the arrest of Lintore certainly was an anomaly, if I would say, because it was the DPP who went ahead of NCIC, and even before we summoned Lintore, he had been arrested. But normally we don't do that. We first of all summon, and then after that, we now take the matter until we are convinced it is a matter that can stand in a court of law. Yes. And so that's where we are. And the reason why the former Prime Minister didn't appear the day we summoned him is because he had left the previous day for London, and he had already told us, he had told me that he was going to go, and after he comes back, then we'll have him to come and answer. Now, on social media, we are monitoring quite a number of platforms and spaces on social media. In fact, 56 spaces and the platforms are being monitored. And we are working this in cooperation with the Communications Authority, because they are the ones that have the technological, the high technology that is needed in monitoring this. But it is true, hate speech has reduced in public platforms and migrated to the social media. And we have followed them there, and we are very actively involved in it. Youth in NCIC, we do have a plan to have a national symposium with the youth. Okay. And in fact, in another couple of weeks, we will have that national symposium. And we have worked very closely, as I said, of course, with young people in the universities and the schools. And therefore, the youth in NCIC is very prominent.
Okay.
Yes.
Lovely. Next to you, Professor PLO. your patriotism and
In
your
fact,
optimism.
anybody who listens to me would say I'm one of the most patriotic Kenyans. Because if you ask anybody whether what I say is untrue, they'll never say so. The only difference between me and others is that I speak the truth without fear of consequence. I tell people what they don't want to hear and what they need to hear. Yes. That is the problem. If you ask anybody, and I've been interviewed both here and locally, is there anything that he said that is untrue? Never. It is not untrue. But because many Kenyans in forums such as this want to pander to their tribe, they expect me to do the same. They want to say things that will please their tribal leaders, things that will make people, and that is not patriotism. Patriotism is speaking the truth without fear of consequence.
Yes.
And that is our problem, that we are in a country where people don't want to speak the truth, and therefore they think that the speaker of truth are unpatriotic. I am one of the very few people in this country that doesn't pander to ethnicity. Sometimes I think that I'm a very lonely Kenyan. Very lonely, because I speak the truth. And even my enemies would tell you that. And that is the problem. Until the day we learn to speak the truth without fear of consequence, we are not helping this country, particularly amongst young people. Today, and one of the things that I wanted to advert to, for example, I'm going to say again, if you ask about cohesion, and the good doctor has talked about, part of the problem is that we live in a country where people are indisciplined and mannerless. Right now, people have been campaigning for the last many months for which seats which have been declared vacant. The law says that you campaign for offices that have been declared vacant. Is the office of the president vacant? Has it been declared vacant? People are campaigning and you are applauding them. Is the governor's office vacant? Senator? Not one. But we don't want to speak like that. Countries are saved by men such as I, who speak the truth.
In the spirit of truth and loneliness, give us some optimism in regards to the media question.
The media. You know, truth is a very sweet thing if it is properly told.
Okay.
You're asking me about the media?
Yes, sir. Briefly.
Let's understand a few things about the media. One, why are media institutions founded or created? And who does it and why? Okay? One is to make money. So there is money in media, and big money. Two is for a crusade, to promote a particular line. And three is for vendetta. You are fighting somebody. And so if somebody has a media house and you have no access to a media house, you create one. After all, this is the Standard Group, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
How was the Standard created?
We are very lonely. No.
No,
because
it was Jivanji who
yes.
created the Standard because he was fighting another businessman who was undermining him, who had a media house.
Yes.
So as soon as he finished that fellow, he sold the Gazette to the settlers. And that's how it came up. So you had there somebody who was fighting somebody, and the only way to do it is have your own media house. So once we know that, why it was created and who created it, we might start understanding where the biases come from.
Okay.
Now, when it's a question of a particular crusade not fighting, particular government media or some other media, they have been founded to promote a particular line. And you have to understand that. If you don't understand that, then you are missing the point. The so-called independent media, okay, Who is the owner and the creator? You will never find a media house here or there, wherever that there is, that will say anything negative or not very pleasant to the owner. Okay?
Okay.
So the bias will be very clear. Oh, our stand is here, and we don't like those people. So once we are clear on that one, then we can then struggle. What we have now going on, the media houses are struggling to be fair.
Okay.
Huh?
We are struggling to be fair.
You are struggling to be fair.
Okay.
Because when you get credibility, if you are fair, you get credibility, and then more people come and join you. But as long as the image is there that you are this or that, you have a problem.
Thank you very much, sir.
That's my comment on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Archbishop Muheria, even as you respond, there are quite a number of questions touching on the charge and alignment. Can you just help me with the charge question, so that, because we have close to at least 15 minutes at most, there was something about Archbishop Muheria. What is your comment about the religious leaders' alignment with political leaders of their tribes, even to the extent of asserting their tribesman being God's prophetic choice?
You've thrown me there into the sharks' pool, because that is actually one of the biggest problems that we have. I think it is clear that religious leaders, as religious leaders, must be neutral. That doesn't mean they do not have a personal choice, but they must not seek to be aligned on one or another side of the political divides or the political questions. However, they must also be prophetic, such that they must call out from both sides issues that are not right, not ethical, not proper, not moral, or, as PLO has also spoken about the issue of political hygiene and the issue of statements that are out of place.
Yes.
So I think the answer is very clear. But they also, that doesn't mean that they do not interact with the political leaders. The interaction of political leaders is meant to try to instill, or if you wish, to install in their operating system something about what are the principles within which they operate their political campaign or political business. So the religious leaders should be close to the leaders. They should try to be as close as possible. So they should try to mentor them, but they should never seem to be affiliated to any political divide. Wow. So I think that's what would be the ideal. Okay. However, the unfortunate truth is that we have seen certain religious leaders easily lured, and again, this is a whole thing of greed, lured into this big bandwagon of whatever message, of whatever political line, and they are called out there to drum up as if, and I already spoke about this about 2 months ago, that no religious leader can claim to be the one who can prophesy who God has anointed. None of us can claim. We do not have a direct line to God. So we can only pray that God anoints a worthy leader, but we cannot claim to the public that I know this is the leader. We can only propose qualities. I think that is, we need to purify the role of religious leaders too. We are not away from the blame. And so my appeal here is to ask religious leaders, stay being the conscience of the nation, call out as a prophetic voice, hold accountable our political leaders, hold them even before the National Cohesion and Integration Commission calls them, hold them accountable and ask them, why did you say this? Okay. Who did you imply? Why do you really think this resonates with your call as a faith believer, a Christian, a Muslim of faith, a Hindu, or whatever may be your creed? Does this resonate with you, or is it another person? This unity of life and vision must be something we must claim.
All right.
And then the Kenyans should also pay a little bit of attention to the soft voice of the religious leaders, because the noise in the room is so huge of the politicians and the media.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. Now, we have a number of questions from our audience right here. I'm seeing one hand. Any other question? Two. I remember we only... Hey, okay. So, do you have a microphone? Briefly, let us be very direct. Ask your question to a specific panelist, who exactly, and shoot your question. We have less than 6 minutes, so let us close this up powerfully. Sir, please.
I will try to be as short and as direct as possible. I was here yesterday with the group of elders. So I speak from the position of being a Kikuyu elder. And a Kikuyu elder is a spiritual leader. And this is a point, even that question that was asked about the religion, it should also be asked about all the elders of the African communities. So, first of all, it is a comment. I feel so happy to be in the presence of the presenters here. Professor Lumumba, you know, we have met in many occasions. I can say you are a patriot, and I concur with your answer. You may be possibly a very lonely Kenyan. Professor Munene, you know, we have met. And also, I concur with you and support you in hope.
Okay.
Because if it was not hope, we would not be here. Even myself, as a young elder, I was invited to this university. And I took courage to come, in spite of all the COVID challenges, because I'm in a celebratory mood.
Yes, sir.
I'm celebrating my birthday, which happened this month. And that birthday was on the 8th of March, the great day of the women.
All right.
And so I'm actually 80 years old, recorded. And I told my family we shall have cakes every month.
Okay.
Up to 2023, God willing, every month on the 8th.
Okay, sir.
So, the comment I am having here is that I asked a question, and it was to our scholars. You see, I am a combination of dresses. I have Kikuyu dress. This is a getuku. It's a sacred heart of the Kikuyu people. And they wear it when they go to them to pray before God. And that's why, just like my friend the Muslim or the Hindus have their caps.
Excuse me, sir.
A sacred heart. So it's good to understand that. Now this gown I'm having here. The microphone.
Yes.
Wazee wanasahau. Sasa,
question, please.
It is a gown. I went back to the Catholic University. And I stayed in that university. I went at the age of 54. I was older muzee. And I stayed in that university for a good 16 years, interacting with the young people, doing my courses and getting my degrees, which had remained. And in 2005, I graduated with my PhD.
Okay.
What did I study? I studied what we are discussing here, ethnicity, about us as Kikuyu people. What I'm holding here is a published copy of my dissertation, which was published in 2016 after the defense.
Okay.
Now, in my recommendations, one of the first one was I addressed us as scholars, and I appealed and challenged African scholars of all disciplines to rediscover ourselves as part and parcel of those people, the anthropologists of the 18th, 19th, 20th century. They referred to archaic, primitive, pre-modern peoples. And those archaic peoples are us. The Maasai, the Kikuyu, the Turkana. So I'm asking the scholars who have the genes produced by these archaic people, to rediscover that those people are your mothers, your brothers, and they are our contemporaries.
Okay.
And so that we can have an intellectual dialogue between us as scholars and the primitive peoples.
Yes, sir.
And it is in that connection that me, I'm implementing my scholarship. I was trained, His Grace would know, I was trained in the Catholic seminary. I am so proud of my formation. The Catholic tradition is a more than 2,000-year-old institution. I was grounded in philosophy, in metaphysics,
okay,
in ontology, whatever it is, everything, epistemology. And in that, I was there for a good time. I did my best.
Excuse me, sir?
As a young man of 19 years,
yes, sir.
I was promoted to be a cleric. I got a tonsure. My beautiful hair was shaved. And I got a tonsure on top of my head.
Okay.
Currently, God has shaved it permanently.
Okay, sir.
Over there.
In
And
conclusion, please.
I left the seminary. I was discontinued. 1962 as a theologian. Before our independence.
Okay.
So all these things we are talking about,
yes,
I have been involved in all of them.
All right,
And
sir.
now, currently, I am part.
Thank you.
I want to confirm what Monene has said about hope.
Okay.
Because I am part of the Kikuyu elders.
Okay.
Among them, there is a committee
All right.
called Agongoni,
Okay.
who officially prayed offer sacrifice necessary to God.
Okay.
I am part of that group.
All right.
And I also say,
thank you, sir.
I'm summarizing, yes. I was part, somehow, I was part of the elders who are in the State House, called by the president on Saturday.
Okay.
I was there.
All right.
And I listened to all what was happening there. A historical event.
Thank you, sir.
As the president was passing, he greeted. I have never shook his hand, but I shook the hand of the president.
Okay.
And all I said is this.
Thank you.
Thank God.
All right.
Because 1963 October, I visited your father, and you were there as a boy of 1 year, 2 years.
Okay.
And now I see. And
thank you,
the
sir.
elders are for peace. So thank you very much.
Wow.
There is hope.
Beautiful.
And we are ready
Yes, sir.
to participate in the Ambassador of Peace,
Okay.
training the elders and everybody.
Thank you.
We have rediscovered the classical systems of education that we have in people.
Thank you, sir.
Ngojeni mambo bado.
Asante sana. A round of applause. Asante sana. Thank you very much. We have a number of questions. You know, sometimes you have to be careful. You can interrupt an elder and you live to regret your days. That's why it's very important to listen to them. Let us be brief in our questions, direct to a specific individual. Kindly proceed, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Now, my name is retired Major Lekorere. I come from Laikipia. I came here, I was here yesterday, and I'm very grateful to this university because as a peace ambassador, which I have participated in a lot of these discussions, I think this is the way to go. It is not a one-off situation. It is continuous, and we must brace for that and keep hope in that we will eventually have the fruits of what we are now planting.
Okay.
Certainly, the fact that we are having such meetings through the NCIC chair, I know it's been happening, means that we are visiting a doctor, we are sick. So let's put more effort and deliberately, like Professor P.L.O. has said, make it happen without fear. Why soldiers don't fight in the barracks and they are armed? It's one, discipline. Period. Number two, comradeship. We don't view each other as my general is a Luya, my general is a Kikuyu, my sergeant major is a Borana. No. Our uniform kind of puts us same, and that's it. To be honest, we love each other. So I think you should copy from the soldiers in this country.
Yes.
And you will be a great country.
Wow.
Men who know war don't want to go for war. You guys who use crude weapons think that it's fun to kill. Please, it's not.
Thank you very much, sir. Men who know war don't want to go to war.
Allow me to ask just one question very quickly.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what your take is on the speaking of our languages, our ethnic languages, in terms of cohesion, especially in public. What is your take on that?
Asante sana, Oriomno. That is Luya of thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. My question goes direct to Reverend Samuel. There is this group of young men called the Boda Boda youths. The impact they have in society is so great in whatever they're doing. What participation have you done? Because the politicians down there, starting from the MCAs coming up, are using them as tools of operation. Yes. What are we going to do? Because they have become a dangerous weapon. And they are fast in movement, they are capable, and they're really moving. They are a government.
Okay.
They are very cohesive in themselves, but they're not integrated with us. What are we going to do about this? Thank you. My name is Obino Nyambane from Kisii County Government, Director of Culture.
Lovely. So even as we continue taking the questions, I know for the formal session, for the airing session, since we have a lot of questions and we don't want to leave anyone outside, what I'll do, they're already taking note of the questions to the specific individuals, like the Buddha Buddha question. We'll come to you, sir, shortly. But at this particular moment, let us wrap up the formal, for the sake of our TV viewers, in brief, closing statements, less than 45 seconds, Then we come back and tackle these issues, in detail. So let us just start here. We go at the end, come in this direction, then we close with NCIC Chair. Please, your closing remarks in brief, sir.
Thank you. I think first is to thank God for us to be part and parcel of this country, to be Kenyans. This country is actually enough for each and every one of us. Opportunities that are there are actually adequate for each and every one of us. It's about how do we conduct ourselves, how do we coexist, because we have no any other home apart from this particular home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed. Mr. Bigambo, your closing remarks.
Well, thank you. This country needs men and women who are willing to stick their necks out for the sake of truth, for the sake of cohesion, for the sake of brotherhood and sisterhood. Because we are not many doing that. On 16th of November, each year, it is marked as the International Day of Cohesion. But sadly, I consider it the International Day of Bigotry. Because while outwardly we speak about what we want, inwardly, we lie about it. How many times do you meet somebody and within a minute you ask them, what's your tribe? It has nothing to do with the meeting that you have.
Okay.
I think the fewer we choose to be, to stand up to save this country, we can do it for us. And as said by King Henry, if we are marked to die for that truth, then we are enough to cause this country loss.
Okay.
And if to live, the fewer we are, the greater the share of honor.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bigambo. Professor Galgalo.
We are the people of hope, and we must always preach hope. Based on that hope, I am optimistic that we will be able to build a Kenya that is stronger, cohesive, and more integrated. But unfortunately, we are not on the right path at the moment in terms of realizing that as a reality. There are something terribly wrong with our superstructure, the way we are engineered as a society or put together as a society. And we need to deliberately, whether through laws or policies, through our institutions that we have, begin addressing in the most concrete way. It's easy to say things, it's easy to talk about, it's easy to sit in such a panel and give excellent ideas, but what we need is to hit the road and do that which actually is practical. It needs to begin with institutions that are in place, to begin thinking seriously, what is it that can be put in place in terms of policies, for example, to begin deliberately working towards achieving cohesion. Education system, for example, education can be a great unifier, a pillar that can bring the society together into one, and be an equalizer for every one of us. But look at the way we have conducted our affairs in terms of management of education in this country. We seems to be about 10 or different countries or so in the same country, where there are peoples in some parts of this country who have never had the pleasure to sit in a four-walled classroom to learn at the feet of a teacher. If they have one teacher for 8 classes, they are the fortunate in that region, for example. And when others are celebrating at the national stage of the great achievements they have, which the media so much hypes, they never ask themselves what it is actually is happening with the others who have been left behind. How are we building cohesiveness? How are you instilling in that child that they too are part of a project called Kenya? Let's stop talking. I appeal to every institution, church included, but mainly the government institutions, to begin working on cohesion.
Definitely. Archbishop Muheria.
Thank you very much. I think we have to change a few paradigms. And one of the paradigms is that this discussion should always be held within the mindset of elections. This is a long haul, and that this discussion is not about the elite political. This is a discussion for Kenyans. So this process, as I said, of inoculation is a process that must be very, very deliberate by all players. And we feel that the church is a major player, or the faith groups are a major player in this. So I feel we need to commit ourselves for the long haul. And in this also, it has to be a personal decision. A question was asked about languages. We must be interested in other people's languages. I can pride myself that I at least speak 2 or 3 other languages of my own. Kenyan languages, including sign language. We must make an effort to go out and speak the Luo or Kalenjin, or you must be interested. Our heart must be pulled, because language also pulls hearts. But when we become only Frenchy, we want to preach French or Spanish or Italian, good languages, by the way. But we must be deliberate about acceptance of other people. And finally, the fact of intermarriages. We must encourage intermarriages between tribes. That must be our message for religion leaders and for all our communities, including the tribal leaders, that we want and actually hold that as a value. And that is what will make us understand one another. But the heart must be convinced. It's not just about programming, it's about working on the operating system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. Professor Munene, briefly.
Thank you very much. Let me commend Karatina University and Professor Nyawira with this. And the NCIC, they've been with this, I think, for the last 3 or so years. So thank you for the effort, because it's good effort. About 1600 years ago, there was the religious people here, Aurelia Augustine of Hippo. And he said, in every place, you will never miss, there always will be, always will be, people who deliberately violate the rules, the laws. They know them. but they deliberately do it. It's not that they are doing it out of ignorance. And then the question that remains, what do you do with that, with those such people? I guess that's why we have governments, if they do their job properly. And then the Chinese Confucius said, governments should be obeyed, yes, but they must rule with justice and fairness. Otherwise, they will have a revolution. So if governments are not fair, they are courting what? Revolutions. So you have those two problems there. You have people who deliberately go against the Constitution, against the law, and then you are stuck with it. What do you do with them? And I guess forums like this ones try to figure out what to do with those people. That's all. Now, the way forward, each one of us needs to work at peace. It is not the government alone. It is not the faith organizations alone. It is not NCIC. It's every one of us to work at peace. And I'm very encouraged because towards the end, I heard that I could hear a lot of people are saying, yes, we need to keep the hope. Keep the what?
The hope.
And if you keep the hope, then you'll know what to do to ensure that we do not disappear from this earth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a young student, I read, is it Chinua Achebe who said that when a hyena wants to eat its young one, it says it smells like a goat. There is wisdom in that saying, that as we point out these mistakes, it must be with the intention of rectifying what is wrong. And that brings me to my second point, that as a country, we must do something called moral rearmament. When we are morally rearmed, then we will begin to do the right things. If you look at the way we behave and how we tolerate bad behavior, whether it's on the roads or wherever we are, that defines who we are. And I believe that when we morally rearm and we become disciplined, then we'll make a better country. And the final thing, we must remember that when politics in a country stumbles, the country pays. This country has been stumbling, but it has never fallen. I saw it stumble in 1992. I saw it stumble in 1997. We had the Kiliku Commission. I saw it stumble in 1988. We had the Saitoti Commission. I saw it stumble in the year 2007, and the international community was here. Let us not believe or delude ourselves that we are immune from falling. And it's our duty to ensure that we work at it and we go out there to be warriors of truth and justice. And lastly, the tribe is innocent. Speaking Luo or Kamba, there is nothing wrong with that. That is our diversity, that is our beauty. In the neighborhood in Tanzania, they have 136 ethnicities. But they don't behave the way we do. There is something to learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I want to respond to the question about border. In fact, one of the 3 national symposia that we have had was with the Border Association. And only 3 days ago, I met with the Director General of NYS, Matilda. And we have agreed that the NYS and ourselves in NCIC will be involved in training border riders. Because as you said, this is a very, very powerful sector. In fact, more powerful than any other sector that I know. Very well organized, as you said. They're very cohesive, but they lack values, they lack decorum, they lack the sensitivity, and they lack the patriotism that we have talked about. These are some of the things that we are going to try and instill in them. And therefore, we are working on a program because it has been agreed that after they are now registered, the registration which is going on, then there will be the training. And we have agreed with them that we will cascade the national symposium ideas that we had with them all the way to the grassroots. So that's what we are doing about it. Let me make concluding remarks as I have been requested to do. First of all, by recapping 4 things. One is that nation building is still work in progress. We are still just a conglomeration of ethnic communities, not a nation yet, but it is work in progress. And is a responsibility that all of us should bear. Secondly, we have a burden of history. We are placed in this country at a critical time when it is possible to know just about everything that is happening. So we cannot say we are ignorant of what is going on. And because of what we are and where we are, we have this burden of history, part of which is to deal with the historical baggage that we have. That historical baggage includes dealing with wounds, psychological wounds, emotional wounds, even physical wounds, and spiritual wounds that haven't been healed. And that healing needs to take place. And that leads me to the third point, and that is the emphasis of His Grace Archbishop Muheria about the place of heart. Yes, we have talked a lot about the place of the hand, and the institutions, etc., is the place of the heart in dealing with in building this country. We know that we are passing anger and bitterness from one generation to another. This must stop, otherwise, by the 4th generation, we might not have a country and a nation to talk of. The 4th one is what I call, we have to deal with mutual vulnerability between the perpetrators and the victims of violence, including elections-related violence. Both the perpetrators and the victims need to be healed, because if it doesn't heal even the perpetrators, then it means that the violence will continue. If the victims are not healed, then it means there will be revenge. So these are things that we must work with. And finally, is about the Kenyan we want. Not just the Kenya we want, but the Kenyan we want. Because a Kenyan has to be one that is described in Chapter 6 of the Constitution and Article 10 of the Constitution, as well as all what has been said by those who are on this podium. Finally, is there hope? The answer to me is yes, there is hope. As long as we have people who have righteous anger, like PLO here, like the Archbishop there, like actually those on this panel. Because each, and I think that's why we were chosen, there's something about that you see needs to be corrected. Righting the wrongs of the past. We have to have that righteous anger. Are there enough of us with that righteous anger? No. Is it possible to mobilize and recruit more? Yes. And I think PLO Lumumba is one of them, as he is perhaps one of the leading patriots that we have. And so the question that had been asked there about him, I think we needed to really say, those of us who know him. When I became the chairman of NCIC, and I've mentioned this to Lumumba, there is a friend of mine who said, look, if you are not very careful, because the way we know you, you might be Lumumba'd. You know what happened to Lumumba in the precursor to the EACC? He simply could not continue. The parliament had to convene specifically to get rid of him. So that's what they meant by being Lumumba'd. So I think we need more Lumumbas here. We need that righteous anger. We need to network all those who wanted to transform this country. Because of that, and because all of us are in this room, and because Karatina University is daring to provide this kind of a forum, yes, there is hope for a better Kenya, a brighter Kenya, in which we'll all be proud. Thank you, and God bless you.
Wow. Beautiful. It couldn't be put any better. Karatina University, National Cohesion and Integration Week 2022. That was the panel discussion. And from that panel, you know, that was such little time because there's a wealth of knowledge and experience that we need to share. But that said and done, at this particular moment, thank you very much, our viewers on KTN Home. Thank you for walking with us this journey. Remember, when you say Amani, it's Milele. Milele, Amani. And that is Kenya's nature, wow, and is our personal responsibility because Kenya is ours. Well, with that said, we want to take a break right here on KTN Home, but on the ground, things are different. We still have a number of questions to handle. My name is Noah Kipkimboy, the team that has enabled this production. We appreciate Jenson Mwakazi. Thank you very much for your input. And most notably, NCIC, Karatina University, and other partners that have enabled this. We appreciate you. Remember, the responsibility is yours because Kenya is ours.